Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to a council meeting on a nice sunny day for a change. It's 5 o'clock and the date is Monday, April the 28th, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. There are no changes to the agenda, so I'm going to ask council for a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as circulated. Councillor Crockett and Councillor Lockie, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest from any member of council.
I'd like to declare indirect pecuniary interest with respect to agenda item number 6.3, item title Z6-25. On today's date, reason for declaration is that the business at which I'm employed is also a farm market agribusiness.
Thank you, Councillor Heyman. As far as announcements, just one this week. This is the week that we're in right now is National Volunteer Week. So I would like to remind everyone in the community that the Volunteer Appreciation Breakfast is being held this coming Friday, May the 2nd, beginning at 7:30 a.m. And it will be held this year at the Thorndale Lions community. No, it's being held right here. I'm sorry, I stand corrected. Then it's being held in the Lions room, is it? Yes. Okay. All right. So that's May the 2nd, starting at 7:30 in the Lions Den. We'll move now into the public meetings concerning planning. And a mover and a seconder that council adjourn its regular meeting at 5:02 p.m. and move into public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act to consider applications listed on the April 28th, 2025 regular council agenda. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Lockie and Deputy Mayor Smybert, all in favor? That carries. All right. The first item on the agenda is 6.1, the consent application B3-25 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z525, Blochus Farm Limited applicant. The property address is 914 Donnybrook Drive. Erin, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So the first application before council this evening, again, is B325 and Z525, which is a surplus farm dwelling severance application in addition to the rezoning component that is required. So farm consolidation has occurred at this location and the applicants are looking to do the standard surplus farm dwelling severance. The subject property is 27.88 hectares in total, situated on the northeast corner of Donnybrook Drive and Harris Road. The lands to be severed would have a frontage of approximately 58 meters and an area of 0.46 hectares or 1.1 acres. They would contain the single detached dwelling and 3 accessory buildings. The applicant has advised that there is a concrete block barn that cannot be used for storage purposes due to the construction or the sort of status of the structure. And the house is serviced by private well and septic system and has an existing access off of Donnybrook Drive. The lands to be retained, being the remnant farm parcel, would be approximately 27.42 hectares in size. It's vacant of any buildings or structures. However, it does have a small woodlot at the far east side of the lot, which is identified as significant woodland and is regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. Again, the applicants are looking to rezone the property. So we are looking for the site-specific agricultural A-45 zone for the remnant farm parcel, and this is to prohibit new residential uses. So the provincial planning statement, county official plan, and Thames Centre official plan generally permit lot creation for surplus farm dwelling severances as a result of farm consolidation, subject to a number of criteria, including the age of the home, the habitability of the home, and keeping the residential lot the minimum size required to accommodate the house and the services and any sort of additional residential accessory buildings that are included. Consolidation in this in this sense means that the acquisition of additional farm parcels has been done in order to add it to an existing farming operation. The dwelling is habitable and the purchaser's home farm is located within the municipality. They own and operate at least 6 additional farms totaling approximately 255 hectares. In all, we are satisfied that the criteria that are required for this type of severance have been met or can be addressed through the conditions of consent. The lands to be severed, again, they would contain the single detached dwelling and 3 sheds. They would comply with the undersized lot provisions of the agricultural zone. Therefore, no rezoning is required for that particular lot. The application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. We received a number of standard comments, including, of course, road widening along the county road. The chief building official provided his standard comments with an addition of number 3, which is all surplus farm buildings on the lands to be severed shall be deemed to be structurally sound and in good condition for residential accessory use by a professional structural engineer or be demolished to the satisfaction of the chief building official. I have not received any comments or concerns from the public at this time. And my recommendation this evening is approval for the consent subject to the 11 conditions outlined in my report, and further that the zoning bylaw amendment be approved and the implementing bylaw be considered by council this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Is either the applicant or the agent in the room would you like to make any comments? Okay, all right then. So turn it over to council then for any questions that they might have. No questions from council? All right, looks pretty straightforward then. Yeah, I'm getting to the public, any members of the public who are available who would like to?
There's no one online, your worship.
Okay, all right. So in that case, if council has no comments or questions and the public has no comments or questions, we'll move to a mover and a seconder for the recommended motion to approve consent application B3-25, subject to the 11 conditions as appended to the agenda. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Crockett, all in favor? That carries. Okay, thank you very much. The next part is a mover for the recommended motion to approve the zoning bylaw amendment Z5-25 as appended to the agenda. And again, a mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Lockie, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. All right. So we'll move on to item 6.2, and this is a zoning bylaw amendment application Z4-25, Norman Demarais, Deborah Demarais, and Andrew Demarais as the applicants, Stephen Carniero Fernandez as the agent, and the property address is 5251 and 5247 Dorchester Road. And there again, Erin, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, your worship. So the purpose and effect of this next zoning bylaw amendment application is to rezone a portion of the subject lands from a site-specific rural industrial M2-15 zone to a site-specific agricultural A-69 zone to recognize the agricultural use of the land as well as lot deficiencies created through consent B1124. The application also seeks to amend the zoning provisions of the existing M2-15 zone to recognize the lot deficiencies again created through consent B1124. The subject property, 5251 Dorchester Road, is a 5.11 hectare parcel situated on the west side of Dorchester Road and north of Harrietsville Drive. The subject lands contain a single detached dwelling and a workshop, which is used for a drainage business. According to information provided by the agent, the drainage business has been operating since 1968. And the workshop was constructed in 1994 in support of the business. The lands are serviced by private well and septic system. Additionally, the land is used for agricultural purposes in the form of field crop cultivation. It's kind of a unique orientation of the property. It has sort of a small frontage along, I'm sorry, Dorchester Road. My prescription needs to be updated. And then a larger agricultural piece kind of at the back. So the subject rezoning was required as a condition of approval for consent B1124, which was conditionally approved by this council on November 18th. The purpose of this consent was to convey a parcel of land having a frontage of approximately 51 meters and an area of 0.753 hectares for a lot addition purpose to be merged in the same name and title as the abutting property to the north, being 5247 Dorchester Road. The intent of the lot addition is to separate the drainage business from the agricultural operation. Through the boundary adjustment, the workshop on the lands to be conveyed would then be included on 5247 Dorchester Road, which also contains a building used for the same business. Once enlarged, the conveyed lands will have an area of approximately 1.3 hectares and a frontage of approximately 89 meters. Currently, the entirety of 5251 Dorchester Road is within the site-specific rural industrial M2-15 zone, which permits only a contractor's yard or shop, an accessory building, structure or use. The zone requires a minimum lot area of 4,000 square meters, minimum lot frontage of 50 meters, front yard depth of 25 meters, interior side yard of 18 meters, and a rear yard depth of 18 meters and a maximum lot coverage of 35%. However, as a result of consent B11, the portion of the drainage business within M2-15 zone no longer complies with the interior side yard setback requirement, and thus the applicants are requesting the subject rezoning application. This would allow a side yard setback of 12 meters, which would be the distance between the new lot line and the large accessory building. In addition to the amendment for the M2-15 zone, the applicants are requesting to rezone the retained portion of consent B11, being the residential dwelling and land and cultivation, from B2-15 to a site-specific agriculture A-69 zone to recognize the agricultural use of the lands. The parent agricultural zone, of course, requires a minimum lot area of 40 hectares and a minimum lot frontage of 150 meters. The requested side yard or site-specific A-69 zone would recognize the deficient lot area frontage and interior side yard setback that was also created through the consent. I know that is a lot of information, but basically what we are trying to do is ensure that the portion of the lot that is being conveyed that is used for the drainage business falls under the M2 zone that actually recognizes the interior side yard setback as what is required, and further that the agricultural property and the house are under the appropriate agricultural zone, again recognizing a deficient lot area, frontage, and interior side yard setback. I probably could have just said that from the beginning, but here we are. So the provincial policy statement, county official plan, and Thames Centre official plan all permit these types of consents, generally involving minor lot boundary adjustments, provided that a non-viable farm parcel is not created. With respect to the rezoning to the retained lands from the rural industrial to the site-specific agricultural, I'm in the opinion that this is appropriate, as the current zone does not allow for agricultural uses. So although they have been sort of a legal non-conforming use, it is now just going to permit the use outright. Again, as well, that would recognize the interior side yard setback reduction that is achieved through the consent. Regarding the requested amendment for the M2-15 zone, the permitted uses in the zone will remain the same. However, it would just add a couple of the site-specific provisions to recognize the deficiencies. I have analyzed the requested rezoning against all of the requirements in the zoning bylaw. There's a number of them, but generally I am satisfied that the rezonings are appropriate and meet the policy documents that we have in place. The application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. I did not receive any comments or concerns generally from our internal departments. The Public Works identified two comments that we generally dealt with during the consent process. So there's of course not an ability to add conditions as part of a rezoning application, but it was taken care of in the consent. CN also provided quite a lengthy comment. However, again, this is something that is generally better dealt with at the consent level, and is more just advising about the proximity to the rail line. No additional uses are being proposed, so I'm not in the of the opinion that there's anything that needs to be done in relation to the comments from CN. So all that being said, my recommendation this evening is approval and that the implementing bylaw be considered by council this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. So any additional information from either? Okay. Mr. Fernandez? Sure. You want to take the mic there, please? If you just want to state your name for the record, please.
My name is Stephen Fernandez.
Yes. Okay.
Well, good evening, Your Worship. Good evening, councillors. It's great to see you again. I act on behalf of the applicants, Norman, Deborah, and Andrew Demery. This zoning bylaw amendment application is further to conditions of the consent application that was provisionally accepted by the council in November 2024. As a brief recap, essentially what is being sought is a lot boundary adjustment, more specifically to increase the boundaries of lands currently used in the farm drainage business. I'll refer to this as the enlarged lands, and to decrease the boundaries of lands used in ongoing cash cropping, as well as lands that currently hold a residence. I'll refer to that as the retained lands. The main objective of the applicant is for the workshop on the retained lands to form part of the enlarged lands. And the reason for this is that that workshop supports the business on the enlarged lands. When all the conditions for severance are satisfied, when you look at the retained lands, you will see the existing dwelling and the ongoing cash cropping operations. When you look at the enlarged lands, the farm drainage business will continue, but that workshop will now form part of those lands. Both lands are zoned site-specific rural industrial, and the within application is seeking to do two things. First, we are seeking to change the zoning of the retained lands to a site-specific agricultural zone, which on its face makes a lot of sense. Those lands are used for agricultural purposes, and we're also seeking to address lot deficiencies with respect to both sets of lands. To keep it brief, the applicant has reviewed the report prepared by the planner, and we agree with the reasoning therein, as well as the conclusions reached. We are also content with the draft form of bylaw as well. As noted in the report, nothing's going to change on the ground. The use of the lands will continue as they have since 1968. And so we would request that the council proceed as recommended by planning. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All right. Are there any questions from public online or?
There's no one online, Your
Okay,
Worship.
and no one in the chambers to comment? All right. Any questions, comments from members of council? Councillor Crockett.
I just have a really simple question. With the consent being passed in November and then presumably the bylaw being passed today, does this kind of tie up the request from the applicant?
Through the mayor to the councillor. I'm not sure the status of the conditions. Perhaps Mr. Fernandez can speak to what has been achieved thus far.
The fulfillment of the conditions are ongoing. Shortly after today, perhaps tomorrow, I'll email the applicant directly and get a status update. And then from there, we will submit a final document that will explain how each of the conditions have been satisfied, along with supporting documentation.
Thanks, Mr. Fernandez. Any other questions from council? Deputy Mayor Smyber.
Great, thank you. Not a question, just a comment. Happy to see that this farm drainage business, which has been in our municipality for such a long period of time, will continue even after all of the planning applications are dealt with, and I'm happy to support the staff recommendation to approve.
Thank you. So if there are no other comments from the members of council, I'll move to close this portion of the meeting. And do I have a mover and a seconder to approve the zoning bylaw amendment Z4-25 as appended to the agenda? Deputy Mayor Smyber and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? That carries. Thanks for your attendance here tonight. Thanks, Erin. And you're back on. Zoning app, 6.3 on your agenda is the zoning bylaw amendment application Z6-25 Appleland Station Inc., care of Van Musilowski as the applicant, and the property address is 329 Richmond Street. So there again, Aaron, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The purpose and effect of this application is to rezone the subject property from the agricultural A zone to a site-specific agricultural A-17 zone to add gift shop, bakery, and recreation use outdoor as permitted uses on the property. The subject property is approximately 20 hectares in size. It's an agricultural lot situated on the west side of Richmond Street, just north of Trafalgar. The lands contain a single detached dwelling, retail storage building, barn, and coverall. And the remainder of the lands are used as I use the term adventure farm. I don't know if that is the appropriate term. We don't have anything sort of defined in our zoning bylaw, but this is kind of what I think summarizes what Appleland Station has sort of grown to be. This also includes an apple orchard and other various agricultural uses such as pumpkin patch, corn maze, Christmas tree farm, and sunflower field. And while the primary use of the land is agricultural, the retail store, bakery, and play area operate as what we call an on-farm diversified use and an agritourism destination primarily during fall to winter months. I mean, I just took my son there for Easter, so they operate throughout the year a little bit too as well. But I think those are kind of their most in operation months. So to support this business, the applicant is proposing to construct a 625 square meter open air pavilion in which to sell produce grown on site and from local farmers. This would replace the temporary event tents that the applicant has used and is currently using at various times throughout the year. And while the use of the structure is agricultural in nature, in the form of a market garden, the applicant is requesting to rezone or to recognize the additional uses on the site, which have been in operation for at least the last 12 years. And this will allow the applicant to make changes or expand the business without further planning applications in the future. So the lands are designated agricultural and zoned agricultural. There is a little bit at the front. I'm not sure if you can see on the location map, but right now there is a tiny little area that is zoned A-17. And we are looking to expand that to the entire property. Currently, that zone allows for just a market garden. So of course, we are adding a few additional uses in the zoning bylaw as well. So under the provincial policy statement, we have the ability to allow uses in the agricultural area that are outside sort of what we typically see for agriculturally related and just strict, cash crop production, those types of things. On-farm diversified uses really allow farmers to expand their businesses to what would not otherwise be permitted in this area, in line with our provincial policy, because of course, protection of our agricultural lands is a very key part of the Planning Act. So we do have a document from the province, guidelines on permitted uses in the Ontario's prime agricultural areas that staff have reviewed, and I am of the opinion that the proposed, or I guess the existing business does meet all of the criteria within this document. With respect to the bakery, gift shop, and outdoor recreation center, these are primarily the uses that we would be looking for under the OFDU. The corn maze, the apple orchards, all of those, if there's farm animals, if there's anything to do with tractors or anything like that, that is all very much agriculturally related and not, part of this on-farm diversified use criteria. So I have evaluated the criteria in my report and I will not go through it, but I am satisfied that both the Thames Center official plan, county official plan, provincial policy statement, and our permitted uses guidelines all support the proposed rezoning. The application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act, and I did not receive any comments or concerns, either from the public or from any internal agencies or departments. I do want to note too, there was a question made by one of the councillors before the meeting. Although this business is obviously in operation, there's the bakery and the gift shop and everything that is already in operation. It has been for a number of years. I can't speak to why, at the beginning, how it came to be, but certainly what we are looking to do is recognize this existing business in the community, and to ensure that, if the property owner wishes to expand in the future, there is no zoning compliance issues going forward. This is very much, to tie a ribbon on it and just make sure that they can come in for building permits, they can deal with site plan, and that can be the only planning application they need in the future. Okay. My recommendation this evening is approval of the rezoning, and also that the implementing bylaw be considered for council. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. So Dan, I see you're in the room. Were there any comments that you wanted to make over and above Erin's report? Okay, great. Any questions or comments from the public?
There's no one online.
Alrighty. Any member of council with a question? Deputy Mayor Smyber.
Great, thank you. Not a question, but more of a comment. I think anytime that we can support local food or the ability for business to provide local food to our residents is something that is in line with our priorities. So we appreciate you investing in Thames Center and carrying out those endeavors. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other comments, then I'd like to move that the public meeting be closed. And a decision, do I have a mover for the recommended motion to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z6-25 as appended to the agenda? So a mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? And that carries. Good. Thanks, Dan, for your attendance. Yes, we are. Thank you, Erin. Okay, we'll move on now to item 6.4, zoning bylaw amendment application Z9-25, Plover Mills Commodities Limited applicant, and the property address is 23364 Welburn Road. Lindsay, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, everybody. Happy Monday. I am here to present the zoning bylaw amendment for application Z9-25 for the properties located at 23364 and 23372 Welburn Road, respectively, submitted by Plover Mills Commodities Limited. The subject lands are located on the east side of Welburn Road, or County Road 27, and approximately 500 meters south of the hamlet of Welburn. The combined parcels are approximately 79 acres in size and are part of the geographic township of West Missouri within the municipality of Thames Center. Currently, the properties are occupied by a single detached dwelling and several agricultural structures. The surrounding area is predominantly agricultural in nature, with the Welburn settlement area just located to the north. 23372 and 23364 Welburn Road recently merged on title after 23364 was purchased by the current owner, effectively removing that interior lot line between them. Following this merger, the owner is proposing to establish a new grain elevator and drying facility on the site to support their agricultural operations. 23372 Welburn Road is currently zoned agricultural, while the rural industrial or M2 zone currently applies to 23364 Welburn Road, which forms what we're calling a de facto property line between the two addresses, creating challenges for further agricultural development due to a required 18-meter setback from any zone that is not industrial. To address this, the applicant is requesting to rezone the lands, the entirety of 23372 and 23364 to a site-specific agricultural zone. This amendment will better reflect the existing and proposed agricultural uses, remove the unnecessary industrial setbacks that are no longer appropriate given the merged and farm-focused nature of this property. These site-specific provisions will permit the establishment of a grain elevator and drying facility, recognize the front yard setback of 17 meters for structures along Welburn Road, and recognize an interior side yard setback of 11 meters for the existing dwelling that's abutting the neighboring property to the south. The application is consistent with the PPS, which emphasizes the protection of prime ag lands and the promotion of agricultural related uses. It also conforms to the County of Middlesex official plan and the Thames Center official plan by supporting active farming operations while maintaining the rural character of communities. From a technical standpoint, soil and drainage conditions are suitable. No significant changes to traffic are anticipated. The property has appropriate frontage on Welborn Road, and no adverse impacts to surrounding land uses are foreseen. The application was circulated in requirements with the Planning Act, and no objections to the rezoning were raised by any of the commenting agencies, nor were any public comments received. Summary, this amendment will bring the lands into conformity with surrounding land uses, support the long-term viability of agricultural operations, and contribute to smart growth principles in Thames Center. Important to note is that this application will also be subject to site plan, which was applied for concurrently. And for these reasons, staff recommend approval of this application and that the implementing bylaw be considered later this evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any additional information from the applicant? No, none at all? Okay, good, thanks. Good to hear that. Anyone online or?
There's no one online, Your
Okay,
Worship.
and it appears there's no one in chambers as well. So, any questions from the members of council? No? In that case, then, there being no further discussion, the public meeting is now closed and we'll move to the decision. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommended motion to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z9-25 as appended to the agenda? Tom, I'm sorry, Councillor Heeman, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smyber. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Thanks very much for your attendance. Great. Item 6.5 is to close the public meeting, that the planning meeting, the planning public meeting adjourn at 5:32 p.m. and council reconvene its regular meeting. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Crockett, all in favor? That carries. So item number 7 is the approval of the previous minutes of April the 7th being approved as circulated. A mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Lockie. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Item number 8 on the agenda is the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are received for information in one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be separated for further action. If nothing is being pulled, do I have a mover and a seconder for the consent agenda? Any, Councillor Lockie and seconded by Councillor Crockett? All in favor? Carried. Okay, we will move on now to reports of departments. 9.1 is the Wabano Creek J request for improvement. And we're having Mr. Craven take this one.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead whenever you're ready, Jared.
Thank you. Our drainage inspector is away on training here for a few days this week, so he asked me to take the report for him. Before you, PWDR 00425 Wabano Creek Branch J, request for improvement. The municipality received a recent request for improvements to a specific culvert, which appears to be undersized compared to nearby culverts along the same water course. During high flow events, the property owner experiences water levels that exceed culvert's capacity, leading to overland flows that wash out their laneway. Approving this request would ensure that the culvert is properly designed and sized to help alleviate the issues in the future. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions from the members of council on this drainage item? None? Okay. a mover and a seconder that report number PWDR 004-25 of the Drainage Superintendent dated April 28th, 25 be concerning a request received for drainage improvements be received for information, and that the request for improvements submitted under Section 78 of the Drainage Act RSO 1990 for new drainage works in relation to the property located inside Concession 6 South Part Lots 4, former Township of West Missouri, be received and adopted, and that Mr. M.P. DeVos of Spreed Associates be appointed the engineer to investigate and prepare the necessary drainage and drainage report. You mover in a second. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Thank you. Yeah, we're going to give you a harder one next time. When the boss comes in, there should be harder questions. Okay. I lost my train of thought. All right, sorry. Senior moment. Distracted by the clerk. The next item is 9.2, information report on additional residential units. Lindsay Nurin, our senior planner, to present.
Hello again. This report was prepared in response to Council Resolution 65-2025 passed earlier this year, which directed staff to compile a summary of secondary dwelling options available to rural property owners, including ARUs and severance opportunities. This work is also intended to complement the ongoing Middlesex County official plan review. To begin, ARUs, sometimes known as secondary units, garden suites, or coach houses, are normally self-contained residential units located within or attached to or detached from a primary residence. These units are recognized as a key tool in provincial housing policy to support gentle intensification, housing affordability, and multi-generational living. Recent changes to the Planning Act and the 2024 Provincial Planning Statement now require municipalities to allow up to 2 ARUs within or attached to a primary dwelling in most residential areas, and up to 2 ARUs on lots in prime egg areas, provided that one is located within or attached to the principal dwelling. These changes are intended to create more housing options without the need for large-scale subdivisions, while maintaining compatibility with the existing neighborhood and farmland operations. Currently in Thames Center, within settlement areas on full municipal services, up to 2 ARUs are permitted as of right. Outside of settlement areas, ARUs are permitted but require a zoning review to ensure they are clustered within the primary dwelling, subordinate in size and scale, properly serviced, and not eligible for future severance. Over the past 2 years, Thames Center has received a growing number of applications related to ARUs. This report summarizes those bylaw amendment applications since 2022 involving ARUs ranging from basement apartments to standalone accessory buildings. And some of the key trends include most ARUs proposed being between 20 and 50% the size of the main dwelling, consistent with provincial and local guidelines, a strong interest in detached ARUs on ag properties, such as units in garages, shops, or standalone structures, and outliers where the ARUs are larger than the primary residence, or proposals, that place ARUs farther away from the main dwelling, raising concerns about clustering and severance possibilities. The report also highlights that there are opportunities to provide clear guidance in Thames Center around the following, including but not limited to size limits for ARUs relative to the primary dwelling, clustering requirements to ensure ARUs remain grouped with the main house on a property, servicing standards, particularly for private water and septic systems in rural areas, preventing unintended severances that could fragment agricultural lands or lots. And staff have also reviewed in this entire process best practices from other municipalities, including Lakeshore, Oxford County, Guelph, Aramasa Township. And these examples reinforce the importance of having those clear size limits, servicing and parking standards, restrictions on severances, and consistent language across OPs and zoning bylaws. Finally, as directed by council, staff will be looking to prepare a detailed ARU policy and guide to provide property owners with a step-by-step information on how to establish ARUs, ensuring that development is consistent, transparent, and accessible to the community. In summary, while ARUs offer important opportunities to expand housing choice, it is critical that policies are thoughtfully crafted to balance growth, affordability, servicing capacity, and land use compatibility. This information report is presented for information purpose only, and a draft ARU policy and guide will be brought forward for council's consideration at a future meeting.
Thank you, Lindsay. It was an extensive report and it's a good job. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to council for any questions and comments that you might have. This is their perfect opportunity to discuss this matter. Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to begin with saying thank you. I think that the ARU proposal by the province is the language could use some clarification. And I think you've done a really good job at trying to pull together the interpretation of that, as well as offering some comparables to neighboring municipalities on what it is that they do. ARUs are certainly a tool to combat the housing crisis that we have. And I think Thames Center has such an opportunity to really relinquish this and make it work for us. And right now, we just don't have the tools in place to kind of keep it black and white, especially as it pertains to the rural areas. With that said, I think that the important takeaways specifically on the rural piece is that ARUs and opportunities that would align with ARU usages, that there's an importance to keeping that cluster function for it to be a subordinate dwelling. Although that there's always going to be outlier instances where perhaps there is a very small primary dwelling where subordinate might not work. But those, I think, are considerations that we can kind of take in ad hoc that I don't think pertain to what a general guideline usage would be. And I think one of the biggest considerations during this whole process is that an ARU is not meant to be a second dwelling with opportunity for severance. And I think that needs to be understood as we approach this. There's other opportunities such as severances or what we saw tonight with the, what was it called? The land excess farm dwelling opportunities, and that we're specifically looking at ARUs and the usage of bringing those forward. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity, and I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Anyone else? Councillor Lockie.
Yeah, through your worship. Yeah, excellent report. Thank you very much. And, I think it's an excellent time to kind of, obviously review our policy on ARUs. And I think they're fantastic because it allows us to, create homes without kind of encroaching on farmland. But one concern that I do have with ARUs is that we are adding to the population of the municipality. And it's more people that are kind of draining on our services, that are using our services, that are using our parks, using our recreation, but there's no development charges on it. And, I'm wondering if council should consider having like a small development charge on ARUs that have a separately constructed building. So I guess my question is proposed to other council. Would you be consider implementing or recommending a small development charge for ARUs on separately constructed buildings, probably a different one for temporary versus permanent.
Any comments from council regarding the question?
Yeah, just a comment. I don't know that we can really open it up our development charges by law at this point in time. It might be something that when we do our regular review, I think it's in another year or two. Maybe that's something that we have the consultant take a look at, but I think we want to try to encourage rather than discourage. So I would like to kind of hold off on that until we have that review done.
Councillor Crockett?
Just to further that comment, I would assume that there would be taxation considerations for ARUs that would come forward that would take a little bit of the burden of municipal infrastructure costs off. In settlement boundaries, ARUs in the rural areas would be on private servicing anyway, so I wouldn't support it in that sense.
Erin, did you have something to say? Go ahead. Do you want a mic?
It is my understanding too that the province of Ontario does not allow development charges on certain types of ARUs. So that might be something for consideration as well. It's although we would like to offer maybe or to implement DCs, it may be something that the province has said no so far, but that's something that we can definitely look into a little further.
Yeah, sure. But if they said on some, but there might be some types of properties that they would permit development charges. Is that correct?
And
David.
do one of the planners have something? Or
So Mayor, I can help. Yeah,
Sure.
thanks for that. So the intention of this report today being received for information is to facilitate the conversation from council members. We'll be taking notes. And as we go back to prepare a draft, we'll do the additional diligence as well, determining what certain things the municipality can do or cannot do, or the steps required to get there, whether it's the DC bylaw review and or provincial legislation. So I know I'm taking notes. I know some other staff are taking notes. So we won't have an answer to some of these questions tonight, but it's still good for us. We'll take it back and report back some of these options for your consideration moving forward.
thanks, Mr. Barrick. Councillor Heeman?
I think we should look at what if there are situations where development fees are warranted, because we do have that added burden on our infrastructure. On a separate note, I look forward to a day where, in rural areas, they don't have to come forward to council. And I think if there's opportunities to implement that in our policies, that we should look to do so at the appropriate time. And I think when we look at the complexity of reverse ARUs or the I know it's not addressed in this report, but the request for a report to look at subordinating larger accessory dwelling or subordinating primary dwellings into ARUs. I think that might make that process less onerous as well if there's only the secondary dwelling request for bonding and whatnot. So I think if we can, I think they're good, and we should reduce red tape.
Thank you, Councillor Heeman. Deputy Mayor Smyberg?
Great, thank you. I just want to echo the comments made by Councillor Crockett. Support the intent of the legislation to accommodate more housing types, a variety of housing types within the municipality. But I guess for me, it's just it's the sizing, right? Because even when you take a look at the chart that you had in your report, there's actually an ARU that's larger than a primary dwelling, right? So that's hard to kind of implement. And I wanted to know if you're like the Planning Association or any other professional associations have written to the province or have requested some kind of clarification Or is there an opportunity to kind of make it clearer so that maybe that's just, it's one size as opposed to a percentage?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Smybert. There was questions given back to the province during their ARU policy creating phase, I guess you could call it, where they declined to provide further clarification on what limited to meant in the wording of their policies. And this is something municipalities everywhere are kind of grappling with at this point, and trying to tailor what that might look like in their own local communities as opposed to the province as a whole. So it's something that we're looking into. In regards to your comment about, I guess, discussion papers or questions from OPVI or CIP or anything like that, it's not something that we've looked at yet, but I can look into it and give you an email should I find anything further.
Any other questions or comments regarding the ARUs? Councillor Crockett?
Thank you, Mayor. I think determining a size would be really difficult, considering that requests may be for different purposes. I'd prefer the language of subordinate to lesser than or lesser to. I think subordinate gives a bit more leeway on the size of the property or the size of the ARU, with the intent of it still being secondary to the primary residence. With that, I know that there was an entry in our current official plan regarding 50%. I know that we can't strike that at this time, but I think we should reevaluate putting an actual percentage number to it. Since there's varying applications and decisions that have been put forward so far, and we know that there has been conversation from current residents looking for an opportunity to go above that 50% threshold. So if that could just be added to the comments for this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Crockett. Anything from any other member of council? Councillor Heeman?
Yeah, I think if we keep it qualitative, that's not necessarily a bad thing because we have a number of different situations across our municipality in terms of the size of primary residences, and keeping in mind the intent of this policy is to increase the housing stock availability. And I don't think we want to be overly prescriptive in doing so. I think that at a certain situation, that's why I would like to have the additional process to subordinate be a viable option, because that, if there is a request that is clearly above 100%, then there is a process to do that. But otherwise I think 75-80%, like we want to have as much housing available. We don't want to necessarily be overly prescriptive in this situation.
Thank you, Councillor Heeman. Anyone else? I'd like to make a few comments of my own, if I may. I'm on the planning committee for the County of Middlesex as well. We're also looking at the subject of the ARUs and a few other matters, but primarily the ARUs. It's not an easy topic to come up with necessarily a percentage, although I understand where the provincial government's coming from on this is to increase the housing supply. I have a few concerns, though, that the one thing is that I think the overall intention of the ARU, whether it's on a residential property within a built-up area or an additional residential unit on a farm or rural property, it makes, I think the real intent is for it to be clustered, to be within the existing residence, And that if we're talking a rural property, if they're, and having shared services. So that's probably in and of itself going to determine some of the size thing. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't pursue that. But in my talks with other municipalities, a lot of them have gone to specific percentages. But what we're trying to do here, if I understand council, is that we would like to, as much as possible, to try and set a framework for these ARUs so that when applicant A comes in and applicant B comes in within a certain range, we have the parameters with which we can make a decision. Because what we're after here in Thames Center is consistency. We don't want to be saying yes to one person, no to another, and then having to deal with some of the fallout. So I'm really happy with all the information that's been provided in this report. I know that there's still some work to do. If the provincial government's language was a little clearer, it would make things a little easier for us. But I think maybe saying that it's a bit Toronto-centric, ARUs work very well as of right in built-up areas, but where you get into the sort of the nuanced detail of it is when you're talking about rural properties. So thank you. We're going to look for some more information back from our planning staff, possibly even the county, and I will keep you posted on that one. But at the moment, I think we've begun the process where we can actually start to formulate a policy that everybody can understand and that we can guide our residents on. Councillor Heeman, did you have something more you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just want to point out that although this is a relatively new definition, we have had these types of arrangements for a long time, and we have had policies that deal with it. So it's like, it's not new for the rural area.
Okay. Anything else? All right, Council, thank you very much for this. Thanks, Lindsay. Good report. All right. Yep. So the report is received by moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Thank you. Then we'll call on Mr. Craven again for the Dorchester and Thorndale wastewater 2024 annual reports.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, before you is report PWES 003-25 for the Dorchester and Thorndale wastewater treatment plants 2024 annual reports. The reports describe the operation and maintenance of the Dorchester wastewater and Thorndale wastewater treatment plants. The reports were completed and submitted to the ministry by your operations and maintenance contractor, Ontario Clean Water Agency, or AQUA for short. The reports detailed 3 non-compliance events that occurred in 2024, 2 in Thorndale and 1 in Dorchester. As mentioned, despite these isolated non-compliance events, both plants performed well and surpassed most target objectives throughout the year. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Jared. Councillor Lockie?
Through your worship, so with respect to the non-compliance, how long did it take to get the operator to, I guess, reset the backwash pump?
You're speaking of the Dorchester?
Yes,
The
sir.
Dorchester is a hydro failure, flash the pump off.
Yeah.
We have on-call operators, or Aqua has on-call operators. They were there within hours.
Oh,
That's
okay.
their mandate.
And do you think that there's any danger that this could reoccur and there could be like a more severe, implication if this happens again?
Through your worship, hydro failures or blips like this happen all the time. Our operators, both water and wastewater, have computers on at home, that they can reset pumps and whatnot too. This particular one need to be reset on the panel. It can happen all the time. It happens in our water department too, and that's why we have standby and all on-call operators to be on site there within hours.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? No. Okay, thank you, Jared, for your report. Then you might as well stay in place there for the Thorndale Industrial Drain. Oh, I'm sorry. I overstepped a step. To receive the report, we have the motion from Deputy Mayor Smybert, a seconder for that. Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, now you can go.
Thank you, Worship. Before you is report PWDR 00525, Thorndale Industrial Drain, Financial Strategy and Bylaw. This report is a follow-up to Council Report PWDR 01424 that was presented to Council at the December 9th, 2024 Council meeting. As discussed in this report, staff submitted the Thorndale Industrial Drain as a candidate to the county loan program and were successful in securing $930,000, which equates to 50% of the funds needed to complete this project. The remaining 50% or $930,000 of the project will be financed by the municipality using the annual Ontario Capital Infrastructure Fund allocation. Currently, the Thorndale Industrial Drain drainage report is nearing completion, which will include detailed plans for piped infrastructure, open channels, and 2 large stormwater management ponds. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Craven. Any questions from the members of council? Councillor Heeman?
So am I correct in assuming that that loan will be repaid by the stormwater development charge or stormwater charges?
Through the mayor, the short answer is yes, over a period of time. We anticipate it'll take quite a long time for those developments to come forward, but at least now the lands are available. We would argue from a good economic development job creation perspective, these lands will be the only serviced industrial lands available in Thames Center for us to have available. And then as they are applied for development, that's when we'll have those additional development charges for this particular project, which would go towards the cost of doing it. So we're for all intents and purposes, front ending the cost up front with help from the county loan program, as well as other funding that doesn't impact local property taxes.
And does that answer your question, Tom, or do you have a follow-up?
No, it muddies it a little more because so in the stormwater backgrounds, like the Watson report, like we outlined a certain amount of money. So would we have additional recovery options through development charges that could free up cash or free up revenue from the stormwater rates and allow us to amend that plan in future? Or is that once we have that recovery from set in that plan that I'm just wondering because I doubt this was backgrounded in the development charge study.
I'll never remember what I said. So inside the watershed of the Thorndale Industrial Drain, there is developed properties and undeveloped properties. The undeveloped properties, those properties, once they become developed, once a property is developed through a building permit, will recuperate a portion of this, these funds for this project here. The properties that are already developed, their share will be coming out of the stormwater rates that they have been paying in towards since 2019. We have those two categories of properties segmented out, developed and non-developed.
Okay, I get it. It'll be capturing a new assessment as well. So
Exactly.
sorry, I have a bad cold.
All right, Thanks. Anything else from council on this matter? Councillor Lockie?
Yeah, through your worship. So, just for my understanding, so the full cost of that project plus any interest on the, additional funds we might need to get loans for, that will be recovered with the new developments then?
Through your worship,
100%?
portion will be yes.
Okay. So the portion that won't be covered under the developments,
Will be coming out of the rates,
the rate?
the stormwater rates. Again, the two, they'll be segmented out, the two categories.
Okay.
Um,
So do we know how do we know how much will be covered between the two different funding sources?
Yep, those are broken out. I believe it's $1.089 million.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the rest will be covered through stormwater rates.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. So at this time, then a mover and a seconder that report number PWDR 005-25 be received for information, and that staff be directed to prepare a bylaw for council to consider under Part 12 of the Municipal Act 2001 for charging future development lands within the Thorndale Industrial Lands to become part of the existing stormwater management system, and that the treasurer and the CAO be authorized to sign the Middlesex County loan agreement between the corporation of the municipality of Thames Centre and the county of Middlesex as attached to this report. Moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Good, thank you. All right, return. Oh,
All right, just one additional comment, if you'll allow it, your worship. I just want to thank the county for making this load program available, because I think that it's doing exactly what it is intended to in this instance. And I'd like to thank staff for bringing this option forward, because it's that new program hasn't been around that long, and it's good that we're utilizing it so quickly.
yes, good comments, and it is good. All right then. So the next item on our agenda is 9.5, artificial intelligence AI policy, and I will ask the clerk to present.
Good evening. Just this report that I wrote, it was to introduce the new policy regarding the use of AI from Thames Centre staff. We are going to be using the County of Middlesex. We're used their framework for the policy, and they have already, as part of that framework, done all of the algorithmic, excuse my wording, impact assessments for the deployment of these AI systems. So they've done all the checks and the balances to make sure they meet all of the requirements for municipalities, as well as they keep up our privacy, potential risks, biases, ethical implications to deal with AI. So currently we don't use any AI because we technically don't have the authorization. So this policy will give us the ability to start using them. And at this point, the only ones we are looking at are similar to the ones that the county has already evaluated, which includes things like possibly adding like an AI thing to an AI contact to our website, stuff like that. The county's been involved in developing them. So this also, part of this will be a training that will be provided to staff ahead of time, not an in-depth one, but just a reminder to ensure that they use human elements to check things over to make sure they're not divulging personal information, they're keeping privacy concerns top of mind, and to maintain any data protection. So if you have any other questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, Jenna. Councillor Heeman.
I think this is a good step forward. I think we've all been hearing about the buzzword AI in our daily lives, and are finding ways to implement it for greater efficiency. And I think that since we are redoing our website and the budget, I think this is a good opportunity to implement some of those tools, because I know a lot of there's a lot of information in our regular agendas that I think have big effects on everyday people's lives. And I think unless, sometimes it's hard for us to navigate these online documents, and if you don't know exactly where the information is, it's hard to find it sometimes. And I think AI is a very good tool that will allow us to provide a greater level of transparency to our residents, and just have a much more intuitive relationship with our policies and the greater public. So I think this is a good step forward.
Thank you. Any other comments? Deputy Mayor Smybert, and then we'll go to Councillor Crockett.
Yeah, just echo what Councillor Heeman has indicated. Great opportunities with respect to AI, and a lot of municipalities have adopted AI policies already. And when this was brought into a county council for consideration, this isn't a restrictive policy. It's kind of like the step one policy, just to introduce it. So as things start to build, with AI and with certain programs, there might be some amendments, that come back for us to consider. But it's just it's a step in the right direction, but it's not going to make it too restrictive for Thames.
Just to add to that, it is very helpful for us as the lower tiers that the county did the work first and then shared it with us. So it's great because they do provide our IT services. It's really good alignment if we follow their procedures and policies.
Councillor Crockett, and then we'll turn to you, Councillor Heeman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sure the work on the back end has been done by the county, but because of the nature of information that municipalities work with, is there going to be respective login restrictions to using open AI versus closed AI, or considerations as such when inputting some specific data?
So before any AI is added to any staff's computer, the CAO and Director of Corporate Services, both who handles IT, will have discussions with corporate or the AI at the county. IT at the county, and they are required before they purchase any AI to do that assessment by their policies. So it will be looked at. Right now, everything is it all meets the standards for what they need to do, and they're not worried about the parcels that they've already purchased. I don't know if the CIO has any more to add to that, but right now that's kind of the way it's looking. We're not looking to branch out and now use every possible AI available. It's going to be like case by case.
Thank you through the mayor, and appreciate the follow-up. Essentially, it's in the policy. It's worded. I was just looking it up as we're speaking. But the basic crux for web-based versions like ChatGPT and others is staff can use it with the understanding of not putting any personal private information in there, whether it's HR documents or sensitive tax documents, et cetera, et cetera. So that's available for folks to use, and we're not naive to think that it's not being used. In fact, we would encourage it as a productivity tool with some guardrails around it, and this policy does that for us. There's other types of AI that we know that the county uses, transcription services. So we're taking a look at that because county IT is using it, and we've kind of been truthed out through them, so we have a greater level of comfort. So we may be adopting similar types of AI like that in the near future.
Thanks, David. Tom, you had another?
It's already embedded in Outlook, so we are using it, and we should have a policy.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments before we move from this item? No? Okay. Then a mover and a seconder that report number LS-006-25 be received for information. Deputy Mayor Smider and Councillor Lockie, all in favor? That carries. So, no unfinished business, notice of motion. So moving on to new business. I'll move to our clerk to explain this particular item.
So this is a recommendation that we need administratively to close a loop on a decision that council made in 2023 to declare property surplus. At this time, there has been no movement moving forward, so it's time to close the loop with the property and declare it, rescind the declaration of surplus. Council has any specific questions on this? We may need a resolution to go into closed, though.
Council, do you have any questions on this matter?
No, I just think this is kind of housekeeping.
I'm sorry. It's housekeeping, yes. Okay. So nothing else then. There is a mover and a seconder for the resolution that's attached to your agenda. I can read it out if you like. No, you're moving, Tom, and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? That's carried then, Janet. So item number 13, bylaws. A mover and a seconder that bylaws 29-2025 through 34-2025 be read a first, second, and third and final time and be adopted. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Lockie. All in favor? And a second and third time? Second time? Nope, don't need it. These always call me, I tell you. Yes, I know. So. I know, no, it's okay. All right, so that carried. Okay, confirmatory bylaw, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution of the municipality of Thames Centre. That bylaw 35-2025 being the confirmatory bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and be adopted. A mover and a seconder. Councillor Heeman and Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Okay. Thank you. Carries. Meeting schedule. The upcoming meetings, Monday, May the 12th, 2025, here in the chambers at 5 p.m. Followed by Monday, May 26, 2025 at 5 p.m. also in the chambers, and a motion for adjournment. Councillor Lockie and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor?